some young people, it really isn't that bad. We're in Dauphin County, which is not as tight as the federal prison, so they don't check us out quite as hard as they do. You do have to give a urine sample though, and they will do a background check. When you go in, they don't pat you down. I think they get to know us, so they trust us. So you don't get pat down, you just have to go through a metal detector now. When you go in, you have to make sure that you are dressed appropriately when you go. You go through about 5 doors to get there. You do see the same blocks every other week. You see one block, and then the next week you see the other block. On Sundays, we see somebody totally different. Our groups run anywhere between 15 to about 30. They don't like us to have any more than that. You get to know them after a while. You only see the guys maybe for 2 to 3 months. Sometimes you might see a couple of them up to a year before it changes and they move on. It's a transitional place. They come through when they have minor violations, or if they're on their way to a federal prison, we see them. So we just try and catch their next journey. We do a lot of praying with them. We are looking for some additional volunteers. They pulled Sister Marie away as an elder, and Brother Bernal. When we have extra members, what we do when we go in, we like to have individual prayer. And that's where we see our miracles occurring, when we get to do individual prayer. But when it's just a couple of miracles occurring, when we get to do individual prayer. But when it's just a couple of us, we don't have that opportunity to do that, because what happens when someone's up there teaching, someone else sits in the back. And then the guys, and trust me, they are so eager for the prayer, even though they may not understand, because I've had some of them come up to me and said, no one's ever asked me to pray for me before, and I don't know what to do or what to ask for. And it's just that simple. So, especially young people, you'll see people there, young men, and they relate more, even though we are female, they relate more to our men, especially men. They relate more to our men, especially men, our men with a history, because they can get there and they can talk about their experiences when they were young and how they overcame. And that really works with the inmates. And like I said, if you can't do anything but write a letter or just pray for them, anything helps. These guys are just desperate. They come from desperate situations, and the only thing that's going to help some of them is prayer. So if we're ready to get started, amen. I'm going to give it over to Elder Ron Timpson from Baltimore.
Amen, amen.
I would like for the volunteers who come with me from Baltimore to stand if they would.
Amen.
I noticed you stand. Okay. For them. Larry, about how long ago was that you with me? Was that this year? I can't remember. I was at BWI Airport Hotels, the Marriott Hotel there. And I went there from the invitation of Brother Gideon. Brother Gideon had an international prison ministry conference or summit, and he invited me there. Well, I didn't know what I was going to run into there, but I went out of obligation. And I was very happy to run into this gentleman here, Larry Washington. And I just contacted Larry this week because I realized I was here in Harrisburg, and I said, wait a minute. Larry Washington and Pastor
Vladimir Bofi.
And to get him to say it. I met them at the conference, and the information that they gave was just awesome. So I contacted the pastor, and he couldn't come today, but he said, I think Larry will be able to come. Well, I said, well, please let Larry know that we're going to be there. If he can come, fine. So I'm sitting at the table at the lunchroom, and someone said, is that young lady here? She said, someone's here to see you. And I knew right away. I didn't even look around. I said, it's Larry. I know it's Larry. I know he showed up because I asked him to be here around 3, and sure enough, he's here. He has an interesting story, but not only that, he's going to share with us this service that he has, the Sound Community Solutions. And that's something that we as a church, we have to kind of work with organizations. We don't have to always reinvent the wheel. Yes. There's people out there who've done what we want to do, and we need to learn from them and grow from them. So Larry, without any further rumbling on, come on and introduce yourself, and let's have a word of prayer first. Yeah. Lord, for what you did earlier today, and we know that you're going to bless this ministry this evening as well. Bless us, Lord, in your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Well, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
He introduced me, he said Larry Washington. I wear a lot of hats. I'm also an elder in All Nations Evangelistic Church under Apostle Melvin Thompson in the city of Harrisburg, and I work for Sound Community Solutions. I'm a coordinator slash facilitator slash mentor for Sound Community Solutions. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about where I came from and where I am today. Is that okay?
Amen.
And I appreciate this. This is all, man, me and Doug was speaking before I came in, and this is my heart. My heart, I found out that not only is this my heart, but this is my assignment, and I can show it to you biblically. That is my assignment. When he gives you a word, he'll back it up with a word.
Yes.
Well, I grew up in New York, Queens, New York. When I left, I lived in Brooklyn, New York, familiar with New York, and I was a heroin addict. And I figured I'd come to Slowpoke, Pennsylvania, Coatesville, and I'd stop shooting dope. Well, it didn't happen. I ended up doing more time in the state of Pennsylvania than I did in New York City. I was in Rikers Island in New York City, all the Philadelphia jails, Holmesburg, House Arrest, Detention Center. I was in Gratisford, Northampton County, Delaware County, New Jersey, Yardsville, Annandale, Middlesex, and when I came to Harrisburg to get clean from drug addiction. In 1985, I went to Gadenzia's program. It's called Concept 90, and something touched me. And I seen people who were like me, but they wasn't doing the things I was doing today. They had changed their lives, and that became my measuring stick. My counselor in particular, she had, they said that she was on the front page of Philadelphia Inquirer for attempt homicide on a police officer. Well, when I heard that, I said, oh, she's like me then. So I brought into her and I started following her, and what I found out later is that she didn't even commit the crime, she did the time for her mother. So she had the 8 years for her mother. And so I brought into the recovery package, ended up working for Gadenzia. I started working for Gadenzia in 1987 as a drug and alcohol case manager, and they asked me to go over to Cumberland County Prison and start a program in the prison. I started a program called New Directions, and as a result of the program, security became the warden. And when he became the warden, I knew I had a shoe in, because I always wanted to work in a prison. Who better knows their way around an institution, a guy that lives, or a woman that lives in the institution? So I ended up working for the jail. They hired me. In 1995, I started working for Cumberland County Prison. I retired in 2015. I was tired of them people, I'm telling you. And it wasn't the inmates. It was the administrative staff. They didn't want to reposition themselves. As much as corrections push change, they don't want to change. The only people they feel that needs to change is the population I'm serving.
Yeah.
And that's what they believe. But the reality is that most institutions, all of them, are under demonic influence. If you want to go to a hell house, go to one of the prisons. That's what it is. That's their representation. So I went in there and I wanted to do all this good stuff, change and everything, but I really didn't know God. I believed, but I didn't know him. And what happened, my son in 2012, my son was in an accident. I had a son two sons was in a car accident. It was a fatality. One died and one lived. And the one that died was 28. And I watched him get saved. I watched him get baptized. And the Lord told me, he says, if you want to see him again, then you need to live like he lived. And I said, oh man. And at the time, I didn't have a church home. I didn't belong to no church. Even though I had evangelism, my aunts had a church in New York. I had a cousin who was a police officer. I had all that. But I was running. So anyway, when my son passed, I I turned my life over to Christ.
Amen.
Well, as a result, I started doing what God called me to do. Well, one day I'm reading Purpose Driven Life.
Amen.
And I asked him, I said, being funny, because I know I'm kind of funny guy. I like to be facetious. And I asked God, I said, well, I read the book, and I said, well, what's my purpose? And he said, ministry. And I said, oh, no, it ain't. No, it can't be. I like cussing. I still was cussing. I liked it. That was the language I understood. That's the language I delivered. So I really didn't want to let go, right? He said, no, it's ministry. So this young lady, every morning I would wake up, when I come into the office, every morning I had something under my door about the power of the tongue. Wow. I started calling her the Bible cop.
All right.
And what ended up happening is my language started changing. So I said, well, maybe I can become who he said I am. So I started doing groups geared towards who he said I am. I started doing groups for men and women in the prison every Thursday for the men and every Friday for the women because the staff didn't want to do it. I worked in Cumberland County Prison, which encompasses Campbell, Mechanicsburg, over that way. They call it the West Shore. And I was over in there. So anyway, as a result of what I was doing, my deputy, who was my boss, became my boss, she was out to get me. They told me she was coming to get me. And I just came in off of funeral leave, off of my son's funeral leave. And they said, you're not going to any more trainings because your boss said she's going to fire you. You got a year and you're out. I called my wife. I was cussing, fussing, snapping out. And my wife said, what's your problem? You're the man of God. She has no power over you. What you need to do is start praying for her.
Yes.
Amen.
And I was like, pray for her? I started crying because I couldn't stand the woman. Telling you, she never was in my office. My boss. So anyway, I invited her in. And I said, let me formally introduce myself to you because you really don't know who I am. And I told her, I said, I'm a man of God. She said, well, so am I. She shouldn't have told that lie. Well, I wasn't even in the building, and they called me. They said, you ain't gonna believe this. I said, what? They said, your boss? They told her either resign or they would fire her. They found out she was in a relationship with one of the most volatile inmates we had in the jail, who was in the state prison. She was going to visit him. The flesh is weak. The flesh, you don't know the word wasn't living in her. Even if she knew it, it wasn't living. Because otherwise she would have been functioning in the word. Yes. So anyway, she lost the job, but that was normal out there for me. So I started exercising the prayer, the power of prayer, right there in the prison. My thesis, I got a master's degree in human service. My thesis was reentry. That's what I wrote my thesis in 1998. My thesis was in reentry. So I did a pilot program in the prison, and I tried to insert it in the prison. And they didn't want it. In 98, they didn't want it. In 2000, reentry became a buzzword to get money. And my boss, when she heard it, she came to me and said, you know that program that you started? Could the prison have that? I said, yeah, you can have it. Now it's going to cost you, though. Now you need to pay for it. And they said, well, we don't want it. I said, okay, that's good. Well, just before I retired, I was trying to go over to work release as the manager for work release. Because all they're doing is housing. That's all they do. It's a warehouse. They're not really empowering them to stay out. They just get them over there so they can make money. So I said, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to change the atmosphere. I'm going to shift it. Because I know I had the power to do that. I'm going to shift that atmosphere. And I said, they already got the folks they went over there. I'm not even going on the interview. I went on the interview, and all they did was take notes. The warden and the deputy warden, they just kept taking notes. But I knew I wasn't hot, but I knew they was taking notes. So they didn't want to change work release. The new language for ex-offenders is re-entrance. Secretary Wetzel in the state of Pennsylvania changed the language. And I commend them for changing the language. Because if you give somebody a different title, a different label, you get people to think differently. And against popular belief, words matter. He said, I don't care what they say, well, I care. Because I know words matter. The Bible say that. So he changed the language. So now we're called re-entrants. And a lot of people don't want to buy into the new language. In the prison I worked in, they didn't. They still call you ex-offenders. And there's a whole lot of other institutions do the same thing. But the state institutions don't do that. They don't do it. Well, I was fed up. I was tired. I was ready to leave. And I asked God, could I retire? And he said, yes, you can. And I was in my locker room one day and I said, Lord, I know you said I could leave, but could you show me some evidence? You know, faith. Come on, we all been there. So I opened my computer up and it said they're offering anybody with step 12, 10-year tenure, $20,000 to leave early. I said, I'm out. I'm out. Look, I'm out of there. So, but the key was they had the amount of money of people leaving had to equal $335,000. And, you know, it was public information. You know, it was in the papers and everything. And I left. I retired. And when I retired, I didn't know, you know, really, I didn't have no direction. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew God was going to instruct me. And what I found out is that if you read the book of Philemon, some people say Philemon, when Paul was writing that letter to Philemon about Onesimus, you should read that story, especially if you're in prison ministry. That is the illustration of re-entry in the Bible. Re-entry is not new, it's just the wording is different. So when he was leaving, he vouched. What he did is he wrote Philemon, and he said, listen, he's not who he used to be. I know you know him, and you might even have some art with him, but he's not who he used to be, and I need you to forgive him. And if you ain't big enough to do it for yourself, do it for me. How many times we heard that? If you can't forgive him for yourself, forgive him for me. And that speaks to relationships too. You got that, we're relational people. And to show you how big Paul was, how great his faith was, he said, and by the way, see if you can find me a room. Now Paul is getting ready to die, and he knew he was dying, but he said, in that sentence there, he's saying, I have not lost faith in spite of my condition. I don't care the hell that I'm living in, I won't lose faith. Yes. So he's vouching for Onesimus. He's vouching for him to Philemon. So the question becomes, who's vouching for your character change? Is anybody vouching for your character change? How many times offenders, guys and re-entrants in jail, yeah, mommy, I changed. This is the 5th time you done said that. So mom got the phone over here, la, la, la. I done heard this so many times. But, so who's going to vouch for it? Well, if you're doing prison ministry, and especially if you're doing one-on-ones with them, you're going to be that one. Yeah, God is sending you in there to be that one, to vouch for them. When I worked in the prison, our policy said we couldn't have relationships with people. How can you be effective if you don't have a relationship? I always say, does your affect, who you are, have an effect? The people you're dealing with. Because if your affect doesn't have an effect, then you're just doing entertainment. You're just hanging out. Even with preaching. My affect has to have an effect. It has to affect the people. The people's behavior has to change. As a result of the deposit I'm making. No deposit, no return. So when I get up here, Elder get up here and make a deposit, I'm pretty sure I expect a return. Same thing with ministry in the prison. Me and my wife, I've been married 29 years. We've been together 32 years. We do prison ministry. We've been doing it for 15 years in Cumberland County, where I retired from. And when I go in there, I challenge the inmates. Are you praying on the blocks? Empowerment. Because you ain't going to be bringing folk in here and talking about, Mr. Watson, can you pray for them? No, you can pray for them. Because you have the same power that raised Jesus from is in you. So you go pray. And because what happens is when we do that, we handicap the population. And a lot of them are already handicapped. They don't need any more. So it's empowerment. So when I do prison ministry, I do empowerment. And I go in the cell, and I mean, verbally, I go in the cell. Somebody got a question? I didn't understand. I thought you were saying hallelujah. I didn't know. I thought you were praising God. That's what I thought. I'm sorry.
Well, you could have acknowledged that too, that wouldn't be a good thing.
I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to find out, your re-entry, is it back into jail or is it re-entry into society?
Re-entry is into society. Well, here's the thing. And let me ask the question. When does re-entry start? Can somebody help me? Anybody?
Ways for me. In other words, I planned my release, about 5-7 years before I got out.
Okay.
And I started walking in my reentry, and things fell in line for me because I was walking in faith, and I had planned
Right.
all the way through.
Well, at the detention level, when you come into, when guys or women get arrested, they get a counselor, and the counselor does a treatment plan.
Supposed to.
So, supposed to. Well, I did. You write a treatment plan, and the treatment plan are the goals about the needs that I need to change. But here's the key. If the inmate or the client, whoever is before me, is lying, then I write a treatment plan to treat the lie. So recidivism keeps happening because I never got my drug addiction addressed because I said I only did crack on the weekends. I only smoked marijuana on the weekends. But it was a daily function in my life. So when I write the treatment plan, I'm treating the lie. We know what happens. Treatment don't happen. So ideally, reentry starts at the inception of incarceration, not when you get a sentence and you get ready to get out. It starts in the beginning, right in the beginning. So I retired, and now I'm working in reentry. I'm working with Sound Community Solutions, and I had this vision that I could go back into prison and really be effective in helping people change. Not when they got out, but even while they lived there. Because there's a lot of guys in prison who have life sentences, and they're not going to get out. But they can still shift the atmosphere.
Come on now.
So empowerment. So I wanted to really go in and mentor the lifers in the jail. Well, what happened is the state of Pennsylvania, I don't know if you all know this, but they're starting to release juvenile lifers. The law has changed as it relates to juvenile lifers, and I believe it's going to change as it relates to lifers, period. Like, they got this bill called Bill 1184, I don't know the numbers, but they're trying to make the minimum 15 years as opposed to life without parole. Life, if a guy gets a life sentence, the minimum, they're trying to make it 15 years. Well, juvenile lifers, it was life without parole. And one of the guys that I was in jail with in 1976 and 77, who was my walkie, guy who I ate lunch with, we talked every day, he got his life sentence when he was 70. So I was trying to show him how to live his life inside the institution. One thing I did, you couldn't be a knucklehead. You had to go to school. Well, he did 42 years, and now he's home. And now he's working with Sound Community Solutions. Yeah, he's working with us and doing what we had thought about years ago. And the key was he never gave up hope. He showed the hope in the way he lived. So he was living in preparation for getting out.
Amen.
Because a lot of guys didn't live that way, so they ended up, there's some guys in there got another life sentence while incarcerated. Yeah, they killed another person. Matter of fact, just recently in SCI Somerset, a prison guard got stomped to death. And the young guy, he was about 22, he just got life. And so they took away all the Timberland boots. This is what they did. Now, if anybody knows anything about Timberland boots, they got rubber soles. Prison boots, they got hard soles. If you want to get rid of something, get rid of the prison boot. But the young man was so angry that he gave it all to the CO, and it was all over a towel. All over a towel. So if this guy would have had a mentor, I'm talking about the lifer. He would have been releasing his anger as he went along. The first 3 to 5 years of the prison sentence for a lifer is the most difficult time. So all he needed was a mentor. Well, right now with Sound Community Solutions, we're in the prison mentoring. And I wanted to mentor that population, and I found out that I couldn't because the funding is not there. But I just put it in the atmosphere. So now when I go to Camp Hill State Prison, every Thursday I do a group at Camp Hill State Prison. I've been doing it for maybe ever since I retired. So lifers are coming onto the block. One day I had a group, I had 6 lifers and 5 guys going home because it's a transitional housing unit. So I posed the question. I like posing questions because it makes people think. And I think we you know, inmates, we need to become ex-offenders. We need to become critical thinkers. So I said, why is it that I got 6 lifers and 5 people that's going home? The people going home should be the majority. Why is it not the majority? And the guys over here, I said, one of the lifers said, well, I hope to be where they are. I said, oh, well, maybe they're hopeless. Maybe that's why or maybe they think that they already got it together. And so my goal is to go into institutions and start implementing mentoring while incarcerated. We got a contract with the Department of Corrections in the state of Pennsylvania to do this mentoring. We started out in the community, and it's for male and females. We started out in the community. Now, like I said, I volunteered at Camp Hill State Prison. I did it for about 2.5 years. Now I'm getting paid to do what it is I volunteered to do. And now I have started going into SCI Smithfield. We're in Delaware County. I have some people down there. A friend of mine who retired from the prison system. His wife is a pastor. They're doing ministry now. They're doing mentoring groups inside of SCI Chester, which is in Delaware County. So I'm looking at doing all of the groups, all the prisons in this region. I'm looking at planting that seed of mentoring. I believe that the planning stage for them is when they're in the transitional housing unit. You know, the guys in the state penitentiary. And, you know, there's some guys there that did 20 to 40, 10 to 20, you know, time doesn't intimidate them. You know, because of, you know, that some guys, they walk around, he'll tell you, badge your honor, you know, I've been down 30 years, like, you know, don't come up on me like that. That don't bother me, because I know you're human, I know you feel like I do. Matter of fact, you might feel more than I do because of your state, you know. So we're doing mentoring, and when you go in there, just go and use the word. Let the word do the work.
Amen.
And long before people buy the information, they're buying personality. So if you go in there mean and nasty, and you wonder why they ain't listening, it's because of your personality. Start practicing his principles and not your personality. It talks about in the Bible, we got to become more like him.
Yeah.
But we got to, what does that look like? In spite of how I feel, in spite of the disrespect that you bring me, I still gotta love you anyway. And that's what it's all about. I'm gonna love you till you can love yourself.
Yeah.
I'm gonna love you to life.
Yeah.
That's what I'm gonna do. So sometimes what I used to do when I do groups, I used to have to deflect it because guys used to be real, you know how guys are. And one guy, I went over to him, I said, do me and yourself a favor and don't come back to me no more. And the next thing was, otherwise I'm gonna stop you, because that's the next thing coming out of my mouth, right? And one of the inmates in the group said, Mr. Washington, we're Christians, we don't do that no more. You know what I did? Right there in front of them, I said, forgive me, Lord, forgive me, Lord. I repented. Because I was out of character. I got out of character in public. I need to repent in public.
All right now.
By the time he hit the block, we was hugging. And the reason why I was so affected by this particular individual, because I used to sell clothes, and I had been clothing him since he was a little boy.
And mercy.
His grandma, and I said, give him clothes on credit. And you're gonna disrespect me out of all people? We're connected, emotionally connected. So I expected more. I'm gonna close, I'm gonna say this. I was in a meeting and I heard this. Well, I like it. When I hear words that hit my spirit, I take it. Because I know God wants me to put it out there. This guy said, men want to be celebrated. And I said, oh, that's good. And I told my wife, she says, how about this? Are you being celebrated or are you being tolerated? And I said, well, what does that look like? Celebrated, tolerated. When men are walking in who God called them to do, your wife is celebrating you. When you're not, they're tolerating you. That's what it looks like. And the same thing with a woman. When you're operating in who God called you to be as a woman, your husband should be celebrating, not tolerating. And circumstances and emotional connection determine whether it's celebration or toleration. Yeah, I said, wow, that's deep. So I gotta look. I gotta look at myself and how I'm behaving. Is my wife celebrating me, or is she tolerating me? I'm pretty sure there's some days she's just tolerating me because she doesn't have enough of me. That doesn't take away the love. That just means I need to get in position. I need to redefine what I'm doing so she can celebrate me. And that's what most of the guys and women in there, they want to be celebrated. I do a group out in the Work Release Center, and I posed that question, and one guy's like, I don't want to be nobody celebrating me, I don't want nobody praising me. And a lot of times when people say that, it's because with that comes expectation. And people don't want to live up to the expectation. Here's my thing, I have high expectations for everybody. The challenge is, can I meet you in your reality? You might not be where I am, but that don't mean I should let you go. That means that I need to meet you here and not beat you up because you're there. I need to help you get to where I expect you to be. No deposit, no return. So if you're not making a deposit, don't expect that thing to change. Amen. Don't expect a return. You know, some of us, we come home from jail, we want our kids to love us for life, but we haven't made a deposit. So we shouldn't expect a return. We might even cut them off. Not even want them to visit, don't write them, nothing. And then we want all this love when we get out. But we didn't make the deposit. So what we get is energy. Yeah, that's the return, it ain't love. Yeah. Any questions? I'm closing. Any questions before I close? Oh, I work for Sound Community Solutions. We got brochures up here. We changed the name. It says mentoring program, but it's really mentoring initiative. And the difference is, the initiative is that we're gonna help guys do what it is that they say they're gonna do. We're not trying to change people. We're just trying to hold them accountable to who they say they are or who they say they want to become. And we're modeling that thing. You want to be a husband? Come on, hang out with me. Let me show you how I treat my wife. You know, when I walk in the house, be around my family. Yeah, you're going to come in my house. You're going to see how I really live. You know, is it consistent? Yes.
What's the success rate?
Well, we really haven't calculated. We just been mentoring about a year. I can tell you, I think we're about 50% right now. I think we're doing about 50% in terms of helping people stay out. You know, because a lot of guys, they get involved with mentoring, you know, because, well, we got a saying, what's in it for me? And they want to see what's in it for them. And they get what they can, and then they run. I mean, literally go on the run. They have scanned from parole and everything. Yeah, they do. I mean, yeah, we had a guy, he was out on parole, and he was called and found out the guy had absconded like 2 weeks prior. And then, you know, we negotiated with the parole agent to get him, you know, back in. And the parole agent said, yeah, he can come on in. I'm going to sit him down for a couple of weeks inside the center. He said he can't go to work or nothing. And the guy said, well, I'll turn myself in after I get some more clothes. Well, needless to say, he's going to go to state prison and sit down for about 6 months. That's his violation. Any questions, anybody? And, go ahead.
I don't have a question, I just kind of have a statement. You had said something about the guys are living for what comes next.
Right.
That really touched me because, when I think about my walk with Christ, that's how all of our minds need to be. Not living for what's in front of us, but living for what comes next. So, that's just such a great mindset to have. I'm not living, I don't want to just keep saying the same thing, but it really touched me, living for what comes next. That's what I have to do in my Christian walk, living for what comes next. And that was in front of
It's
me.
your process. That's right. Come on over here.
Yeah, working for this system, and how long were you there?
Well, my age would change, right? My age, when I changed my life.
Yeah, when you first went in,
When I first started going to jail,
yes.
I was 17 in New York. They lock you up when you're 17. So I got like 45 years of experience working and, in and out of the system.
Have you ever been to the Bronx House of Detention?
No, I was only in Rikers Island.
In Rikers Island?
I was in and out of there like, I don't know how many times. Yeah.
Oh,
But my cousin lived in the Bronx, so I used to sit in his house, smoke weed, and look at the Bronx House of Detention and laugh. This kind of guy.
Yeah, you had made a statement, it was centered around no deposit, no return, but you said something about no effect, and I didn't get the rest of it.
Oh, affect and effect.
Affect. And-
Affect and effect.
Okay.
If your
Yeah.
affect
Does your
doesn't have
affect have an effect? What you bring to the table, is it helping the people you say you're gonna serve? As a father, does my affect have an effect? Am I empowering my son to be a man, to be a father? Does it have an effect on them? Or am I just, having conversations and shooting the boat over? Yeah, you gotta question myself, Anybody else?
Well, not a statement, but it lines up with what God is expecting of us as his children. He's expecting us to learn of his word and then emulate that which we have learned, because that's where change comes. You know what I mean? So I think what I'm hearing you say, it's not enough to just say, you have to walk the walk, because I'll hold on to the walk longer than I'll hold on to your word.
That's right.
It'll make no sense. And I get emotional.
And let me say this to, he has.
Oh, yeah,
Let-
okay.
Read, if you're doing prison ministry, read about Joseph. Joseph was the first one that went to jail. He went from the pit to the prison to the palace. I went from the pit, drug addiction, to the prison, and the palace is the state of mind that I'm in. That's the state of mind. Peter was in jail, and they were praying for him, and the angels released him. Paul's in prison. Paul and Silas, just recently, I told the women in the prison in Cumberland County, I said, are y'all praying on the blocks? They said, yeah, we pray at 6 o'clock or 10 o'clock or something. I said, no, everybody pray at 9 o'clock on all the blocks. I think it's 4 or 5 blocks. All of y'all pray at 9 o'clock. It's called corporate prayer. I went to the other side of the jail and I told the men, I said, pray at 9 o'clock, corporate prayer, men and women, on every block. Paul and Silas were praying and the gates opened. So when that time, the gatekeeper, the guard, if a prisoner escaped, they killed him. So the guard he wanted to secure his life. So he's like screaming for Paul, and Paul said, we're right here. He said, well, why you ain't leave? Because God didn't tell me. I want to know that, God. So I let him know that you can be a witness. You can help change staff in your incarcerated condition because of the power of him. You help him. So don't play yourself cheap because you're incarcerated. You still got valor. Just be praying. Just start praying. So I told him, start praying. Start exercising, what you say you want. So read about, them guys. And here's the thing, because I really got into Paul. Paul, he's writing. And when he was incarcerated, the lights went out when the sun went down. Because he had no electricity. And he wrote all these epistles. And you mean to tell me you have light? And you ain't doing nothing? speaks volumes about your character and where you're trying to go. Because wherever we are, not just them, but us too, is our process for the next. That's our process for the next. If I'm showing humility, I'm doing it because of the next step I'm getting ready to take in life. The next step that God is getting ready to take me to. All this adversity that's coming my way is for the next step, for where I'm getting ready to go. I need to learn how to deal with obnoxious people, disrespectful people, disloyal people. He prepares us for this stuff. This is not the test. They don't test this, you do. You're going to get a test. I say, let the word do the work. Yeah. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. I'm letting the words do the work. That's all I got to do is just call on his name. Yeah. Call on his mighty name, and I'm good. Well, I thank you. I appreciate you. And you just continue to pray for me. Amen.
Give Elder Washington a little more love. He came here knowing we had nothing to give but love. Amen. He came. And I'm sure that many of you will be in support of this program. In a little bit, we're going to have Garrett come up because I'm not sure how things are going on at home. We talked to your mom. Things are pretty stable.
He's stable.
Good. For a moment, though, we want to, yes, if we could. Just want to mention something on the screen. This is in reference to corresponding with inmates. I believe this is chapter 4, just before Garrett comes up. I'm not going to take a long time with this. All right, stop right there, my brother. The key verse is, these things I have written to you who believe in the name of the Son of God, that you may know that you have eternal life, and that you may continue to believe in the name of the Son of God. 1 John 5:13. A lot of times we need to encourage the incarcerated men and women that there is eternal life. And if they believe in God, then there's a good chance their lives can change. Well, it's not a good chance. Their lives will change. And that's the kind of things you're doing when you write to inmates. I'll go ahead on introduction to the chapter. Keep going up. Okay, here, right, stop right there, my brother. How to get started. First, contact the proper authorities at your institution. You want to find out what are the regulations at the institution, what are the laws and bylaws as far as letter writing, okay? That's very important that a lot of institutions are different, okay? You can't do the same thing in every institution, like what they do here in Pennsylvania compared to what they do. Contacting the chaplain is very key. You know, don't try to do things without getting the chaplain involved. Chaplain is key. What did I say? Chaplain is key, okay? If you get friends with the chaplain, you know, you can get a lot of things done, okay? But if you alienate yourself from the chaplain, believe it, it's going to be a real struggle for you inside that prison. Then it says, second, obtain a list of rules for corresponding with the inmates. Most institutions have established those rules, and we've said that. Down at the bottom, it says, some institutions do not permit inmates to receive any of these items through mail. You can see them here, Bible, gospel contracts, Bibles, cassette tapes. That's why I'm saying find out what you can do and what you cannot do, all right? And then it says, keep in mind as you write to prisoners that many of them may feel suspicious and resentful. Now, I saw that as the other way of being of the lady, Sister Humphrey, who would come and visit him all the time, and there was a major snowstorm, and the prison officer said, man, I don't know what you're standing here waiting for that old lady to come. She ain't coming. It's a major snowstorm, man. Buses not even running. Danny said, she coming. She promised she'd be here. He said, come on, man, be realistic. The snow's up to here. About 2 hours later, Sister Humphrey coming through that snow, out of there, making it because she promised to be there. And we're still not sure how she did all that. I think the angel must have helicoptered in or something. Just dropped it in there,
Excuse me, brother. On that
Yeah,
same note.
yeah. So, and it says here,
Elder Timpson.
I'm
You
sorry.
saying something?
Yeah, on that same
Okay.
note there, brother, we had a terrific snowstorm here.
Uh-huh.
And sure enough, when they called those boys out from the cell block, they walked into the chapel. They said, I can't believe y'all here. We were not prepared to have service because we knew that you were not coming.
Right.
So that was our stand to let us know that we love them that much.
That's right.
That we'll walk through snow just to deliver the word of God to you. And that's when we got our rep. That's when we had 65 inmates at a shot. And the prison were afraid that it was an issue, but it wasn't.
Right.
They cut us in half because they thought it was an issue, and we're still growing.
Right.
And you show them what you got, and they'll respond.
Hey man, that trust thing is awesome.
Yes, sir.
That trust thing is awesome. So it says inmates are often resentful because they have been rejected by society, and after all, you too are a member of that society. Okay. So give inmates unconditional love and understanding. Inmates feel lonely because they're alienated from society, friends, and family. Many of them have been rejected by the latter. A week without a letter can seem like a year. So write often and respond promptly. One prisoner is reported to have called mail paper sunshine. Sound like some acid I took years ago, but anyway.
Watch now.
Yeah, I was a bad boy. All right, so pray that God will help you to properly understand each letter and direct it with the proper response, all right? If possible, it is best not to use your home address when answering letters. Use a post office box or church or ministry address. This will avoid possible future problems. Another inmate getting your home address, a parolee showing up unexpectedly on your doorstep. Make it clear from the beginning that you're not looking for romantic involvement.
Yeah.
It is easy for prisoners to become infatuated, even if they've never seen you because of their loneliness. Kindness from you can be misinterpreted by them. If this happens, you should straighten it out in your very next letter or visit. Be courteous and tactful, but firm in this area. Some ministries restrict pen pals to the same sex. Do not share anything about yourself that can be used against you later for any reason. Do not send money unless you have really prayed about it and know God is directing you to do so. If you send money, never loan it. Send it as an outright gift. But make it clear not to expect future gifts. Be sure to clear the gift from proper channels at the institution. I can't emphasize that enough. Be sure you follow the rules of the institution. Why? Because if you do not follow the rules of the institution, you can jeopardize the whole ministry.
Amen.
I mean, jeopardize the whole ministry. I just had some brothers say, well, Elder, send me your email. I said, wait a minute, I can't send you that in here. Come on, why y'all doing that, man?
Can I?
Did you want to say, no, go ahead, Doug. I thought you were saying, no.
No?
No, go ahead, say it.
Oh, yeah, because I was a transgression, sir, okay? And I own my lumps back at the time when I was first elder at MCIJ. And as the first elder, you're taking on the responsibility because you're acting on behalf of the pastor that's outside of the church. So I'm inside basically, overseeing this church. So I had a great rapport with the institution and the Christian warden. He's a Baptist minister. And so it was against the rules for me to be in contact with the volunteers over the phone. But I stretched the rubber band, okay? Because we want everything to work and be in contact. It wasn't nothing going on with coordinating the ministry, but I got him called on the carpet for that. I did. So, about the work on the inside, and even though I was the elder of the church and all that, you still have to say no because it puts the ministry in jeopardy. See, I wasn't looking at it like that. I'm trying to keep this church moving. I'm trying to get things done, and calling volunteers was against the rules. Okay, and I know better. But so, you know, you have to make sure that even though you might have a rapport, and Elder Timpson and I have been together over 20 years, but you know, you have to still say no. Because the warden sent the message to me, and for God fear me, I haven't seen him since I've been out, so I know I need to go visit him. He's retired from the system now, but the point I'm making is that you build a relationship, man, with the leadership and the guys that's in there. There's a trust thing. I told you, Paris and I have been together over 3 years. So you build a friendship, so you know that you trust these individuals, but you have to look at it from the overall ministry. How is it going to affect the ministry if we get caught not abiding by the rules? So learn from my mistake, okay, and stay away from those gray areas. See, I own my lumps, man. I take
All of us had a Paul, Timothy, and Mark experience, you know.
Yeah, I got it all.
You know, at one time. Do not be too preachy in your letters. Establish relationship first. Then it is easy to share regarding spiritual matters. Share incidents from your everyday life that make you feel part of your life and family. Okay, and these are some of the things, if it's allowed. If some places don't allow you to, you know, do pictures and different things, you can't send cards, you know. So these are just some of the things into letter writing you need to keep in mind. And if anybody here is interested in letter writing, we have that information for you. I know that we can make sure Linda has the, you know, you do letter writing already, don't you? Or,
One team member does, I don't specifically one, a couple of people.
okay, well, we can make sure you get this information. And I was a Texas death row inmate. It is so overwhelming, the letters I received. There's nothing to describe it. I'm so blessed. Thank you from the depth of my beginning. There are no words to express what it means. My heart cries out that others can experience it also. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Garrett, you got the floor, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Again, my name is Garhett Adam, and I always do this intro, so forgive me. Inmate number 431-531, state ID number 3869982, cell block CD 614, Jessup Correctional Institute. Name and number I will never forget. Ever. Unlike some of my other brothers who I had the pleasure of meeting in prison, and I say the pleasure of meeting, because it truly was an honor and a pleasure to meet some of the brothers. I had a very different background than quite a few of them. Earlier you had heard that they were praying for my father, Pastor Adams. So you know I came from a background where my father was a minister my entire life. My grandfather actually used to be, was the former president of Allegheny East Conference, Elder Meade Van Putnam. And so, no, he's still alive. Yeah.
Looking well, too.
Still alive, 93. Still kicking. And so, grew up in the church my entire life. Knew the right thing to do. Knew what the wrong thing was to do. Went to Pine Forge Academy, 4 years, graduated top of my class. Ended up with a full academic ride to school. But in the midst of that, I decided I wanted to be a thug. I wanted to be in the streets. I wanted to be the cool kid, wanted to be the one that everybody liked. And ended up making some really bad choices because of it. I don't blame anyone. I don't try to say it was somebody else's fault. No, I made bad choices. It was my choice. Nobody put a gun to my head and made me do what I did. I made bad choices. And so those bad choices ended up leading me down a path that I really never envisioned. You know, it's amazing how when you're in the midst of sin and you're in the midst of doing the wrong thing, you never really seem to see the consequence. You know, people always ask me all the time, well, did you think about this when you were doing? No, not really. And I feel like it's the same for pretty much everybody. When you're in the midst of your sin and in the midst of your mess, you really never fully see what yourself. Exactly, Ellen. You never fully see yourself. And so, you know, I would justify these things in my mind. It was just a little bit of this, it's just a little bit of that. You know, it's not that serious, I'm not hurting anybody, you know, that type of situation. And really ended up down a path I never had seen myself going down. I still recall to this day, I had the pleasure of going back to Pine Forge Academy to speak to the students. And just let them know, you know, I once sat where you are now sitting and told myself, I'll never be where that guy is. When people would come to talk restoration and about making bad choices and how they're going to prison and things, I remember sitting there looking and telling myself, I'll never be where he is. I'll never be in prison. I'm never going to jail. No, I'm never going to do that. But ended up in the very place I told myself I'd never be. Ended up doing the things that I told myself I'd never do. All because of bad choices. I had a preacher that once told me, he said, sin will always take you farther than you intended to go and keep you longer than you intended to stay. Sin will always take you farther than you intended to go and keep you longer than you intended to stay. And another one, they said, if you give the devil an inch, he'll become your ruler. And my problem was I gave him the inch. Thinking that he would be satisfied with the inch. Oh, I'll give him the inch, you know, and I'll have a little fun. But it'll stay right there. As if when the devil gets a piece of you, he's content with that little piece. Oh, the devil's greedy. He don't just want a piece. Oh, he want the whole thing. And so I thought I could be content with just a piece. But it got worse, and it got worse, and it got worse. And I went from a casual marijuana smoker to an everyday marijuana smoker to including marijuana with drinking. Ended up getting drunk almost on a daily basis. Many a night that I drove home under those conditions, both drunk and high, with all types of combinations of drugs in my system. Don't remember how I got home. You know, and it's truly a blessing that I'm even standing here right now. Because there's many a night that I was going down 95, 70 miles an hour and passed out on the highway. But woke up and I'm still in the driver's side of my car with the seatbelt buckle parked in my driveway the next morning. And don't remember how I got there. That was on multiple occasions. And it just kept getting worse. It kept getting worse. It kept getting worse. And eventually, my lifestyle led me to committing several armed robberies. Several armed robberies. Wasn't just one, wasn't just two. By the time they actually caught up with me, they ended up charging me in 3 different counties in Maryland. Prince George's County, Montgomery County, and Anne Arundel County. With a total of 6 armed robberies that they had charged me for. And I ended up getting convicted in every last one of them. I ended up getting 15 years all suspended with 3 in Prince George's County, straight 5 in Montgomery, and 18 all suspended with 12 in Montgomery. Now you can imagine my father and my mother, who have their entire life tried their best to raise me in the church, to teach me the right ways, made sure they had family worship with me, made sure they prayed with me every morning before I went to school. You can imagine how they would feel now. Spent all their hard money to send me to Christian education. Wasn't cheap. made sure that I didn't lack any need, and then to have pretty much me slap them in their face, essentially, and tell them that everything that they had done pretty much my entire life was for nothing. That wasn't my intention, but you can imagine that's probably how it felt. I can guarantee you that's how they felt. And I remember the first time that my mother and my father came and they saw me in jail. You know, I was fighting back the tears. Because from what I knew, never been to jail a day in my life, but from what I knew, this ain't necessarily the place I want people seeing me crying. So I was sitting there fighting back the tears in the visiting hall. And I saw my mother and I saw my father come in. And she placed her hands up against the glass. And I placed my hand up against the glass. And just the look on her face when she just realized I can't touch my baby boy anymore. The look of disappointment on her face is a look I never want to see again. Her and my father both in tears, and my mother picked up the phone, and she looked at me, and the first words out of her mouth were, "Baby, it's just you and Jesus now. Because Mama can't help you no more. Mama and Daddy have tried. Mama and Daddy have done everything we knew to do. Mama can't do this time for you. It's just you and Jesus now." And then she spoke something over my life. She said, "Here is determined upon how long it takes for you to get converted." She said, "So play around as long as you want. But you'll stay." And I ended up doing a grand total of 5.5 years. And I truly, I don't even know the right word. I don't want to say kudos, but I truly, I guess I have to use that word, kudos to the brothers such as Elder Winstead and Mr. Harris and guys that have done that amount of time. And I know my mental state and how I was ready to go crazy after 5.5. And I can only imagine, how God has kept those brothers who have done that serious amount of time and that portion. And I just can't even imagine how that would feel. I'm going to be honest, I still have nightmares to this day. I'm married, and many a night, I wake up in the middle of the night sweating. Wake up in the middle of the night and sit on the edge of the bed. And my wife looks, "Oh, babe, what's going on?" It's like, another nightmare. Constant nightmares of going back. The fear of going back. It's the impression that it is left on my mind, the fear of going back. And my mother and my father, I don't understand when I say it, but I would rather them put me in the grave than put me back in the cell. And I'm going to go do something for them to put me back in the cell. But if those are my only two options, I think I would have to take the grave portion of it. Come on now. Rather than go back in cuffs again. And it's amazing how God works in a situation and how God works to restore. The fact that I even ended up at JCI to begin with was nothing short of a miracle from God. Amen. What many of you may not know is that Elder and Sister Mitchell, Elder Mitchell just got moved from United in Christ, was my father's first elder. And that was the exact prison that they come to do prison ministry. And so before I even reached JCI, Elder and Sister Mitchell had gone into the prison, and my pastor's son is on the way. And before they could finish the sentence, the guy sat there and said, "Don't even worry about it. We got it." And those brothers watched out for me that entire time. From the day I hit that compound, those brothers found me. How they found me, I don't know. But the day I hit the compound, they found me. had somebody random come up to me, is your name Garhett Adams? You know, the first question out of my mind is who's asking. You know, I don't know how you know my name, first of all. You know, I don't know if I want to, you know, depends on what you're looking for. You know. Depending on what's happening, I may be him, I may not be him. Maybe something I don't like. No. What they found, are you Garhett Adams? Yeah. They said, we're from the Faithful Flock of Calvary Seventh-day Adventist Church in here. Ella Sister Metro told us she would come. And those brothers looked out for me and showed me truly the love of Christ. Truly the love of Christ. They made sure I had everything I needed. They made sure if I needed soap, they made sure I had it. If I needed toothpaste, they made sure I had it. If I didn't have any food, they made sure I had it. If I didn't have clothes, they come to the door with a bag of clothes. The brothers made sure and were there to knock me over my head when I started acting a fool too. Truly, they were godsends. And they showed me the character of Christ. And I can only attribute that to the fact of prison ministry. Because I guarantee you that they were not like that before going to prison. Apparently, we are in prison for a reason. But seeing the effect that prison ministry had on them, that now they could take that same illustration of character of Christ and give that to someone else coming in. That is how prison ministry changes lives. It's not just about the brothers when they get out, but the prison ministry volunteers aren't there all the time. And so the investment that they have put into individuals' lives, they begin to pour into other individuals as they come into prison. And so you see the work continuing even when they're absent. So your influence and your investment into prison ministry does more than you will ever see. Amen. There are guys who will come to the service who you never talked to before. And you're trying to figure out, well, how'd you even find out about it? Oh, well, the brothers told me about it. The brothers have been praying with me. The brothers have been doing this. The brothers have been doing that. Your investment in prison ministry reaches farther than you know. There are brothers in the institution right now whose families have become saved because they've seen the transformation that has happened with them. Because they've seen the transformation of you didn't care anything about God before. Now what has happened that every time matter of fact, it was Elder Steve that said when his mother comes in, she said this is the highlight of her week to come see him because her spirits get uplifted when he comes in and prays with him. And she prays with her and he prays with her. So that's the highlight of her week. People's families get saved because they see the transformation from them. Your investment in prison ministry goes farther than you ever think, farther than you ever realize. You don't realize you're touching people on the outside and you're going to minister to people on the inside. Truly, I can tell you prison ministry is needed, and I didn't understand it until I was on the receiving end of it. I did not understand it. But truthfully, and this is a shame to say, I saw the love of Christ illustrated more inside the prison than I did in some churches. Say so. Say so. We're just going to tell the truth. That's right. That's right. Because some of the stuff that mind you, I grew up in the church my entire life. I've seen the good and the bad. Some of the stuff that we have hang-ups about isn't an issue in there. The judgment factor thing, we all in prison already. So what you gonna judge me about? We all already here. The hang-ups. But they illustrate I'm telling you, the transformation that you see from some of the brothers makes you actually ask, what did you do to get here? Yes, sir. You wouldn't believe, when you talk to some of these brothers, you would not believe, why are you even in prison? And that, I tell you, is the transforming power of Christ.
Yes.
Yes.
That is the transforming power of Christ. When it so changes the individual that you can't even see the past anymore. And some of them, when they shared with me why they were there, I couldn't picture the crime matching the person, because I saw who Christ had made them now. And I couldn't see them now doing what they did. And that is the transforming power of Christ. That is the transforming power of Jesus Christ. Upon coming home, I had a couple of individuals, and a lot of my, I'm a full-time student over at Bowie State University now in Bowie, Maryland. And a lot of my professors, and this really touched my heart, because I'm very open. I go around and actually do a lot of motivational speaking now. I go around to different churches and different schools and speak to the youth about, the bad decisions that I made, and trying to help them not to make the same decisions. The ministry that I started, Rebel Ministries, stands for Recognizing Every Burden and Alleviating. And we go around and we speak to the youth and do youth mentoring. We do some prison reentry, helping guys to find housing and stuff once they get out. So in the midst of going around, I had people that tell me, I just can't imagine you ever doing that. And I say, thank you, Jesus. I just can't imagine you ever going to prison. Thank you, God. Thank you, Lord. I appreciate that. And then I look at the restorative power of Christ. How I went from being sentenced to 18 years in prison. By God's grace, the Lord released me after 5.5. And when I came home, by God's grace, 22 days later, I was enrolled as a full-time student at Bowie State University. By God's grace. And when the Lord does something, He doesn't do it halfway. Let me tell you, would you believe my tuition is paid for? And my parents have not spent a dime on it. Nor have I had to take a single student loan. But yet tuition is paid for. I came home and literally about a year to the day, at the same courtroom where they sentenced me at, I went to get married. The restorative power of Christ. To see that testimony has helped so many individuals, and this truly is a ministry that is needed in the church. There's a prison ministry that is needed in the church. Not in the prison, but in the church. There is a prison ministry that is needed in the church. Because I never knew the amount of families who were affected by loved ones being incarcerated until I started going around and speaking about it, and speaking about my experience and the choices that I made. And I had so many individuals come up to me, hey, can you pray for my son? He's out there in the streets, he's been incarcerated, this, that, and the third. Can you pray for my grandson? He's out there right now he just got sentenced to 10 years. Hey, can you pray for my niece? Can you pray for my nephew? I'm like, all of us got this problem? And nobody's talking about it. And people are coming into church and silently hurting, and silently in pain, and silently broken. But, we want to put on that facade that I am a man of God. I have nothing wrong. Everything is goody-goody gumdrops. And inside you're crying. Inside you're hurting, and inside you're crying. There's a prison ministry that is needed inside the church. And while I was there, I was thinking of a way that I could get the message out to a broad, majority of people. And so I started to write. And I actually wrote a book while I was in. By God's grace, I was able to come home and get it published.
Amen.
The book is entitled One Choice Away. And on the front of the cover, it says, every choice has a cost. What will yours cost you? Every choice has a cost. What will yours cost you? And the closer we get to sunset, I will have these available actually after the service is over and takes place. And I thank you guys for allowing us to be here. I thank you guys for even acknowledging prison ministry. And I would like to also thank your prison ministry volunteers for caring about the least of these.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
As far as Sunset with his books, is it possible we can do some consignment things?
We can, however you want to do it.
It may not quite be Sunset. Our last guest would be Doug Winstead, but before he comes up, I just want to just share a couple of things from the Ministering to Inmates family. And this is for those of you who really aren't comfortable going in, okay? The letter writing that I showed you earlier is all part of that. Sister Long, what will you be Liberty SDA Church? What program will you be doing? What is your main emphasis?
Related to the families, we're going to be doing angel tree.
Right. Did you hear what she said? Angel tree.
Yes. We're going to be doing angel tree. And next year we're planning to send at least 2 children to camp.
Okay. There's a camp that she wants to send at least 2 children to. And this is run by the Allegheny East Conference.
That's right.
The camp is run by the Allegheny East Conference. There's also Prison Fellowship does camps as well. But my brother, go ahead and scroll up on that, past the objectives. Scroll down, rather. Okay, here we go, right here. Thousands of families are directly affected each year by having one of their loved ones in a prison jail. Most of these families are broken and filled with loneliness, anxiety, and feelings of rejection. Few of these families receive adequate attention from the church. God told Abraham that through him all the families of the earth should be blessed. As the spiritual heirs of Abraham, we too can bless families. This chapter explores the ways that we can do that as a church. Go ahead on. When a family member is arrested, it usually creates great anxiety, fear, and uncertainty for their mate, children or parents, for the children and the parents. Imprisonment brings a double crisis to the family. The first crisis is that one of the family members has been arrested for breaking the law. The second crisis is the family is split apart. And losing a family member to imprisonment is similar to a person dying. Did you hear that? It's similar to them dying. Children face shame and loss when a parent is in prison. They may be displaced, having to live with relatives, friends, foster homes, or in institutions. Many do not get to visit the incarcerated parents, perhaps because of court orders, distance from the prison. And that's something a lot of people aren't doing. But you know, one of the great things to do is help families go visit their incarcerated members. You know, use your car to take them. For instance, in Maryland, someone can commit, for those from Maryland, you know, someone could commit a crime in Park Heights, and they don't go to Jessup, which is only like what, 20 miles, 15 miles? They send them up to Cumberland, which is what, 60, 70 miles away. So they don't get a chance to visit their loved ones. So that's a great thing to do. So there's transportation hospitality. Once again, as I told you about that. Keep going, my brother. The family may not know how to get information, things like trial dates, when and how to visit, or how to obtain legal representation. You can be helpful if you familiarize yourself with this system. I think it's a great thing for people to take a course in criminal justice, you know, as a volunteer. You know, take a course in criminal justice so you can know exactly what's going on. Social services, you know, share information on public and private agencies and things like that. Employment, if the wage earner is incarcerated, the mate may need to find employment. You might want to help her with that or him with that. Housing, food, clothing, and finances. The family may need temporary or permanent housing, food, or finances to help them get on their feet. If you or your church provides financial help, checks should be used if possible and made for the bills involved directly to the landlords. You know, a lot of times when you want to help people, you know, you need to make sure the money goes where you want it to go.
Amen.
there's a temptation for them to use the money in other ways. Let's face it, the incarcerated spouse or family, or, they may be addicted as well. And when you put cash in their hands, a lot of times, guess what's going to happen? That bill not going to get paid. They'll be on the street first, okay? Christmas, and as Sister Long was saying, this is when Angel Tree comes in. Christmas and birthdays are difficult for children and their incarcerated parents. One way you can help is to purchase gifts for Christmas and birthdays. Wrap them up and present them to the child, but be sure that the child is from daddy. It's from mommy, okay? Not from the church. It's from daddy and from mommy. That's very important. There are two important things you must do before contacting the inmate. Once again, this is check with the chaplain or administration at the jail or prison where you're ministering. See if there are any rules against this and establish procedures that you should follow. Obtain written permission from the inmate so the family and institution knows you have his or her approval. The request also clarifies the purpose for your contact. You may use and adapt the following. And that's family contact request sheet. That's it there. That's one of the ones they use. Each institution probably has their own. Okay, a friendly telephone call or brief visit should initiate this ministry. At the culmination of the visit or call, offer a brief prayer. On the next visit, bring a copy of the same literature that the inmate is using for the adult family members so they can process spiritually together. So this is just, and I'll just skip down to the note. It says, husband and wife teams are ideal visitors. Men should never visit on inmates' wives alone, nor should a woman visit an inmate's husband alone. When you're working with an inmate's family, keep all personal matters confidential. Share only that which you have received specific permission from the incarcerated family member to reveal. Never get involved in legal matters or mention alleged problems between the prisoner and his or her family. And this is written by Patricia, this is Halsey. As we enter the prison, long dark hallways with crumbling plaster and rusting pipes lead to even darker stairwells. We descend the steps and cross a frozen yard with vicarious dogs barking from behind their enclosures. We then enter the hallway of a damp cell, blocked lined with heavy metal doors. Crowded cells with 15 prisoners and 5 beds are not uncommon. The inmates sleep in shifts because of lack of beds. Many beds lack sheets, blankets, or mattresses. There are no personal hygiene products. There's no privacy on the one toilet facility in the room. A dim electric bulb hangs from the ceiling. The stench is horrible. There's no fresh air. There's no television, radios, or books. There are no religious services. Inmates shower once a week and only allowed out of the cells 15 minutes a day. The cells are infested with lice. Lunch is a green-looking broth served in tin bowls. It was into these dismal surroundings that we went from cell to cell, ministering the love of Jesus, distributing Bibles and study materials just before the heavy metal doors clanged shut behind us. One inmate spokesman called that cell block, commented, one of the individuals in that cell block commented, "We thank you for the things you have brought us, but what is more important is that you cared to come at all." And that's what's important. Jail and prison ministry is a supernatural ministry birthed in the heart of God. It is a ministry to which one must be anointed, appointed, chosen, called, and sent. It must be done in the realm of the Spirit in absolute obedience to God's will. When the Lord talks to us in this ministry, He gives us our very own burden, love, and compassion of His Spirit. It is a special ministry and precious to Christ. And I'll just leave it at that. There's much more there, but you are good readers. My wife tells me I read too much of the words and don't let the people read. But you can see it there. So all that's saying is that there's other things you can do other than going inside the institution. there's a work to be done. Aftercare, as has been mentioned, is very important. There'll be, what's the statistics now on release? 60,000? Yeah, about 60,000 was the last statistic I got. I don't know if Maryland had, well, we can't be biased because we're in Pennsylvania, so we just can't talk about Maryland. But anyway, there's going to be a lot of men and women released, and the church needs to be prepared to receive these individuals into their churches and be prepared to help them out. That's why I'm glad that Elder Larry's here today, because he does offer some solutions for us and some things that we can learn from. All right, Elder Wilder.
Praise the Lord, church. What's the youngest person we have in here? How old is this young man back here? How old are you? You look like you might be the youngest in the room.
I'm 6. Oh, me?
Yeah.
I'm 16. She's younger.
All right. Amen. Let me tell you the story. Because a lot of times we get up here and we talk about things that scratch the surface. And let me tell you about what I got out of today's program. I never said this before, but I'm going to say it. I'm the victim of sexual assault. And the perpetrator is still alive. And I need to go to him.
Jesus.
That's what I got today. When I was 12 years old. God doesn't make any mistakes. And we have to look at our lives, and we have to deal with our stuff. I never said it to my wife, but it desensitizes a young person when they grow up and they deal with stuff that they never had to deal with. So I need to go. And I need to deal with this. If it wasn't for the love that was shown to me as I developed as a young person when I went to prison, and the love my wife has shown me, unconditional. So we play the role, and we don't hear it. And I need to hear it. I was the first inmate ordained elder in the state of Maryland. Gave my life over to Christ. And I still didn't heal. That's what induces our behavior. We go out and we do things and we act out because we didn't heal.
Yeah.
So I need to heal. My life was changed because of the investment of prison ministry. And I got out of prison less than 3 years ago, and I've had an opportunity, and I didn't take advantage of it. And I need to do it before he dies. Because I forgive him. I forgive him. To whom much is given, much is required.
Yeah.
The Lord has done some extraordinary things in my life. He's brought me a long way. Give me a job. Give me a good wife and family and an opportunity to grow and be accepted.
Yes.
That's all we want.
Yeah. That's right.
Is when we get past stuff, we don't want to be reminded of it anymore. But now, that's what I got out of today. I gotta go and see my cousin. And I gotta tell him that I love him and I forgive him. And try to win him for Christ.
Yes.
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 Amen.
That's my story. God transformed me.
Yes.
I went to prison for a long time, 36 years, because like Paul, I was standing by and consenting in the death of Stephen, while a 21-year-old female was victimized by my two co-defendants. So I was desensitized because I had learned to deal with the pain. But now it's time to heal.
Yes, Lord. Yes.
So, pray my strength. I come here and I preach, I'll be back every year. I try to be here more than that because it's something special at Hillside. Come on. I couldn't have said this just anywhere. But God put it on my heart because I don't want you to think when you leave here today that what's going on in the touching and changing of lives doesn't matter. It matters. Hurting people hurt people.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
He didn't tell his whole story as a heroin addict and some of the things that he had to do to get heroin. You can't say anything until God moves you to say it. So, if you don't take anything out of this, there's some people in this room that need to heal.
Right.
And don't delay. Because tomorrow's not promised to you. We got to go down 83, and I'm going to be cruising at the speed limit. But I can't account for anybody else's behavior.
That's right.
So we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So just listening to the stories today and just hearing what I heard, God just put on my heart, man, what are you waiting for? Forgiveness is more for you than it is for the victim.
Come on, say so.
Perpetrator, if you will. And I got a cousin that's out there that's under the influence of drugs and everything else that's going on, and I need to go to him. And I need to reach him and try to touch him. I don't want to be because I hadn't forgiven him. So that's what I got. That I'm still growing and maturing in Christ.
Yes.
And don't be like me and wait. It's been almost 3 years, but I'm going to make it my effort before the end of this year to get to him. And to let him know that I forgive him. And that I still love him. That's what we have to do, man. We have to go out and touch lives. And look like, he didn't judge me, man. Let me tell you, if they had got me for all the stuff that I did, I would have never walked out of prison again. When I got locked up, man, I had 13 indictments with multiple counts for each indictment. They had given me, when they gave me life, they had meant for me to stay in prison for the rest of my life. But God had a greater purpose for me.
Amen.
And I got to do what God said do, man. Because one of my greatest fears was stigma. Because when you come out, man, you still have the stigma of having been on the inside. So you don't want other people to know your story. You heard the elders say on the wild. Well, they were saying that because that's what they know me all my life. I had legally changed my name. because I didn't want the stigma, man, to be attached to my family. My mother and father, who are still alive, have been married 62 years. They didn't deserve what I did and what situation I put them in. And then my father, when I came home, my father gave me the keys to the kingdom.
That truck.
That's right. He remembers, even though my brother has a truck now, you know, but he had a greater need for the truck. My father just really can't drive anymore, so my brother lives real close to him, so he goes and takes him on what he needs to do. And I'm happy that my brother is able to do what I can't do, because I live all the way across town. But we don't want to stretch it out any further tonight. I don't know what the elder has in way in terms of closing. But look at this beautiful granddaughter that I have. And how God, she's something. You see, you heard her? Tell her. Say who? It's me? Who am I? Who is it? Say it's who? Say it's Papa. It's Papa. And that's how God restores, man. I have a beautiful family, 2 granddaughters, my wife who stuck with me for 14 years while I was on the other side. Man, that's just my story. And I just haven't finished, man. And what I got out of today, man, you need to go and do what God told you to do. And I need to just give it and get that behind me and move forward so God can continue to use me the way He called me. And a lot of times we carry this stuff a lot of years, and we don't do what we have to do to get past stuff. And that's what I got out of today, man. I got to go back and get this fixed. With me and him, because however he responds, it doesn't matter. I got to hug him and I say, I love you, man, and I hope you receive Jesus and the pardon of your sins. And if I can facilitate that in any way, give me a call. Instead of acting like he's just not there. You know? Listen, I'm not turning anything in terms of who I am as an individual. I'm heterosexual male, I'm married, I love my wife, and anybody who don't like it can see me out the hallway. You know what I mean? That's the bottom line. And sometimes things happen to us in our lives, man, and we can't fix it. And so keep investing in the people, man, who you think, nobody else cares about. Because you don't know their story. I told you some of my story today. And I got released because I was able to say it.
Amen, amen.
Praise God.
Amen. With that, anybody has any questions? You know my story from the last time when I preached last year. You know how long I've been in jail, and you know God is doing some great things with me as a commercial truck driver, but I'm going to be honest with you, I'm trying to get out of that truck. Amen. That is hard work. Drive up down that highway with that 50,000-pound vehicle, and people just make your life so miserable, because they just don't respect what you're driving. They cut you off, and they do that, and trucks like that size don't stop. They have air brakes, man, and they don't work like that. And I just believe that the Lord is going to move me away from that situation into a job where I'm trained to do in criminal justice and use my degree and continue to make a difference. So, pray my strength in the Lord. Anybody has any questions? Anybody want to share? Mitchell, you want to share before we leave today? Because we've had a long day and we all got to travel. At least some of us have to travel back to Baltimore. Amen. This has been powerful. So if you ever thought that prison ministry meant nothing, it doesn't make a difference, you have positive proof. You don't have negative proof. You have positive proof. What we take into prison is Jesus Christ and the Word of God. And it makes a difference in people's lives.
frowned upon ministry is so vital, so vital, so vital. And we need to look at the fields because they are white unto harvest. There's a great harvest, there's a great harvest. And I'm going to turn this mic over to my beautiful wife.
Well, I want to thank God for just being present today. He really showed up. And this is a little impromptu, not a part of the program, but I just was impressed when my big brother Wally was up here telling his story, a part of the story that I've never heard before. And what it said to me is that hurt people, as he said. And all of us have been hurt in one form or fashion. So I asked my president, we need to have an anointing. I just believe in the power of prayer, and I believe in anointing. It does break yokes, and it breaks chains. Yes. And many of us are being yoked, and we are in chains. And so my call to you, because I think my husband made the call this morning, he asked a question about anybody coming, what was that call? And it was dealing with people coming to Christ. Oh, Holy Spirit, it's not there. But anyway, what I didn't see was the answer to the call. That's what I didn't see. I didn't see people come up. And I don't know whether you didn't come up because you don't want people to know your story or know that you are in need of a Savior and that you're dressed up, pretty up, smelled up, but you're hurting. So my call is for us, and I'm standing first. Because I still have some strongholds and some hurdles in my life that I got to get over. And I need God to do that mightily in me, that I can go out mightily and do the work that He has called me to do. But you can't go and give people what you don't have.
That's right. That's
so if we're talking Jesus, we have to emulate Jesus. If I'm saying He's a healer, He must be my healer first. If I say He is a deliverer, He must be my deliverer. If He can break yokes, He must break my yoke. Because my story has no power other than the Holy Spirit giving the power of deliverance. My words are just words, but the Holy Spirit will help you to understand the intensity of it in my life. So I am calling for the broken. I am calling for those who need to be healed. Those who need to be made whole. And it ain't about nobody else sitting next to you, because guaranteed they need to be healed and to be made whole. But if they don't choose to walk with the call, it is on them. Because understand, it is God calling you. So I set the stage because the Holy Spirit pressed me upon it. And I want them to anoint my big brother. Because number one, you can't go and do something like this unless the Holy Spirit goes before you, because He has to prepare you and He has to prepare the person that you're going to. He has to prepare you because that person may not be ready to admit that they offended you. What do you do when they still say, I didn't do a thing? And they're not ready to admit their stuff, yet you need to be made whole. So forgiveness is not a stronghold that Satan thinks he had, a way he can do a greater witness. So guess what? Somebody else in this room has been victimized. And it is not an easy thing to admit, and you don't have to do it with us, but you do need to go to your daddy to do it with, because you're not whole, and your attitude will show, and you act out. And we have tantrums as adults. We ain't falling on the floor like a baby, but we're angry, and we're bitter, and we're resentful. So the call is, if you hear the Holy Spirit saying to you, there's some area in your life that you have not really given to me yet, and I want to make you whole. And that was the question He asked when He went about. Will thou be made what? Whole. Whole. He heals us mind, body, and soul. So if that is you, you come and join us. And we're going to let the elders anoint us and set us free. Because what was that, Isaiah 61? The Holy Spirit has come upon us to empower us, to set the captive free. Guess who He sets free first? Me.
I'm gonna ask the doctor, I'm gonna wait. Pastor, I'm gonna wait. I don't wanna come in your house and do something. You know, I'll be talking about anointing folks right now. I had this little thing here